Good evening, everybody. This is the Wednesday, May 22nd, 2021 Special Town Council meeting of Scarborough, Maine. The second item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 3 is roll call. Tody?
Councilor Pucci?
Here.
Councilor Anderson?
Here.
Councilor Gleifstein? Councilor Katarina?
Here.
Councilor Johnson?
Here.
Councilor Hamel?
Here.
Chairman Johnson?
Here.
Thank you.
Our only agenda item tonight is order number 21036, second reading on the proposed FY 2022 municipal and school budget. Before I put it on the floor, see if there's anybody in the public that would like to speak to this. Ms. Hamill, you are up.
Can you hear me?
We can, yep.
My name is Susan Hamill, and I live on Bay Street in Pine Point. First, I'd like to just say thank you for all of the hours that you guys have put in, what you've given to the town, and thank you for getting us to this point in the budget. It looks like you met the goal and that we'll have a tax increase of less than 3%. I didn't expect that there would be many speakers tonight from the public, but I'm here to say that taxpayers still care very much about their tax bills. For most of us, our property tax bill is our biggest bill, and it's the one we care about very much. But it's been a crazy year for everybody, and it's really been hard to pay attention. This budget was put together and revised in public, as it is every year. But something about this year was different. Most of the work was done by the Finance Committee, and very few real cuts were made during regular town council meetings. There were no public hearings with long lines of speakers at the podium talking about school budget cuts or other cuts. It has been very, very quiet. We got to where we are because our revenues have increased, not because a lot of cuts were made to the proposed budget. It feels like it's been raining money. Every time we turn around, we hear about more money coming from somewhere. Federal and state COVID money, state revenue sharing, general purpose aid for education, fees for permits, excise taxes up again. Our net budget, the part paid for with property taxes, is increasing 4%. But don't let that low figure fool anyone, because our gross spending is up 12% this year. That is the total we spend. We are spending $113 million this year compared to last year, $101 million. We are bonding something like $8 million worth of stuff. No buildings, no big projects, just stuff like school buses, furniture, pickup trucks. These bonded items don't count when we calculate the tax rate for property taxes, but we have to pay the price sooner or later. Our debt service will now be approaching 15% of our net budget. For every $1 of property tax money, 15 cents goes to that revolving charge card. At the end of the day, yes, I am happy that my taxes will only go up 2% this year, but I am very worried about what happens when all the free money goes away and we taxpayers will be called on to make up the difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Any others? Seeing none, I think I will let the town manager give a quick introduction and then I'll have a motion to put it on the floor. Tom, do you want me to share my screen or?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
If you could just bring up the adjustment sheet.
Yep. Let me bear with me for 1 second here.
So as you're pulling that up, I'll just talk somewhat of the process, just to kind of recount for the council and public's benefit. This process started this year, April 7th, with the joint presentation by myself and the superintendent. And then on the 14th of April, council held its first reading. council took a fairly large step forward actually to meet the goal. So there was a $3.4 million reduction in first reading, though there was no kind of specific detail as to how to reach that goal. But it was, I think, really important for the council to have taken that step. I think it signaled to the community your commitment to stay true to your goal. And so in the ensuing weeks since then, the Finance Committee has really focused intently on meeting or exceeding that goal. Just working down through the timeline, back on May 5th, the council and the school board held a workshop, and also the formal public hearing was that evening. And then the council added an additional public hearing on May 18th. And then that brings us to this evening. So in the intervening weeks, the Finance Committee met a total of 5 times. The results of their efforts is proposed reductions of $3,553,533 to be exact. And the goal, of course, was 3.4 million. So they've exceeded the goal in that regard. As the speaker said, largely the reductions have come by way of additional revenue. And Chairman Johnson, if you can just pull up the first motion, keep going. Yeah, one more page. So the first motion in this encapsulates all the hard work of the Finance Committee and what comes forward by way of their formal recommendation. And it's intentionally fairly broad. We do have detail to support all of these pieces, but you'll see in broad strokes, there are revenue adjustments of $2,319,057. You scroll down. There's recommended expenditure adjustments, removing $283,698. Those are changes in the general fund of a total of 2.6 million and a little more. Now on the next page, there were a number of capital cuts. There were, yep, right there. There were decreases in expenditures of $269,528 and increases in revenue for capital of $681,250. That was largely due to the creation of a capital reserve account that this council is familiar with, and a means to fund those projects that are listed. And so when you combine all of that at the bottom in the blue, if you scroll down just a bit more, you'll see the total change of $3,553,533 is the totality of the Finance Committee's recommendation. So that's kind of a quick synopsis. I certainly would defer to Finance Chair Clucci if he has any further comments.
Yeah, no, I think you covered it pretty well. Just to speak to Ms. Hamill's comment, yeah, it feels like it's been raining money this year. Every time we turn around, there's a new revenue source that has opened up to us, which is an experience that I've never gone through. I haven't seen us gone through here before. And it is something to be thankful for, but also cautious about in the future in that, sometimes the rain can stop and the tides can shift the other way. So it's something that we want to be prepared for. And I think this budget and the proposed adjustments are a nice balance, I guess, between keeping spending reasonable, but also keeping a consistent and predictable tax impact on the taxpayer.
Just on that point, if I could, intentionally, the Finance Committee chose, and I think the council through its workshop agreed, this budget does not include any of the recovery plan, fiscal recovery monies from the federal government. We want to take our time to be very deliberate. And I guess on the part of the school side, to the extent that there are any operational expenses that are covered by federal money, kind of one-time money, I know the question has been asked multiple times of them. They assured us that to the extent they're hiring staff, these are one-year positions with a clear understanding that these are grant funded. And so it is at least my impression, and I leave it to the Finance Committee members, that we have not assumed ongoing costs at the local expense. So I hear the point. I think it's a good cautionary note, but I think we've been very thoughtful of that point exactly.
Councilor Clucci, you want to take that as a motion?
I would. I move approval of the second reading of the proposed FY22 budget.
I second that.
And discussion. Counselor Katarina?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the Finance Committee for all of the work that was put into this budget. I think it was very thoughtful. The town manager and finance director and others also contributed quite a bit of information. I think one of the most responsible things we have done in this budget is not say, oh yeah, we've got all this money, let's go spend it, which is not a wise thing to do at all. So I was very pleased and I'm happy to support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Hamel?
Yeah, I'm going to support this as it's being put forward, and also echo the thanks that Counselor Katarina expressed to Counselor Clucci and the finance team of Betsy Leisting and John Anderson. So I mean, really terrific work, and you guys made it look easy. And I know there were untold hours, but I will say I think that we used moderation this year to an extent, but it was moderation in really unusual times. And I think John Clucci made that point pretty very well. So I just think as we go forward, we're just going to have to renew a focus, even though it seems like we have a lot of money, and to really continue to drill into the detail, to start building our fiscal discipline in terms of how we review our operations, and don't just accept that we're going to be constantly doing cost plus. I mean, we really haven't had a time where we've made a major retraction in spending. That has happened in the past, but not in recent history. But I think that even in good times, that's the time to really exercise some austerity. It seems counterintuitive, but that's something that I am really committed to, and I know that other counselors in the public are as well. In terms of where the public has been on this, I think people are tired. I think people are distracted. I think they were dealing with major life issues, and people are fatigued. So I'm not interpreting that as a lack of interest or a lack of conviction or commitment to making sure we're being smart about how we spend money. So one final point, I wanted to thank Counselor the Chair Johnson and several other counselors, including Counselor Clucci, for building in a workshop for us to take a look at one of the larger capital items. I thought that Counselor Anderson did a great job in the Finance Committee last evening, talking about the need for us to look strategically at big spending items like this. And I think we need time to kind of really socialize this with the public and to decide, whether it belongs, going to the voters on a ballot or not. And we'll have the chance to do that August 15th as a workshop. Just remind people to focus on that. I know there will be a communications effort to try to educate the public around that. So maybe there will be an opportunity for folks to come forward and at least focus on that. I think it's a good idea. I think we need improvement to our areas that provide recreational opportunities for citizens and also many visitors. I'm predicting we're going to have a very busy summer this year in terms of visitors. But I think that if we take a more strategic approach, I think that'll enable us to balance interests in areas where there are terrific, there's terrific pressure in terms of use and preservation. So, but thanks everyone. I think this is hopefully a year that people will say, well done. We did a good job. We could have done more, but we did what we thought was right, and we focused on the key priorities. And I think this year was also smooth in terms of how the town worked with the schools in trying to make their respective commitments and sacrifices. So thank you.
Just real quick, Counselor Hamel was referring to, we're having a workshop on Herd Park. I just wanted to, the hard work.
Yeah, I didn't mention Herd
I'm just going to start the communication now, so everybody
Thank
knows
you.
you were referencing
It was-
the renovation project at Herd Park.
Thank you. Key omission. Thank you
Yes,
for catching
yes. Counselor Gleisteen and then Counselor Anderson.
Yeah, so, there is, Tom didn't mention, the federal funds that we are expecting are not in this budget at all. So to the extent that, you know, we already have built in applying some future funds to future projects and future budgets. So I think that that's probably going to be a help over the next 2 years. And, you can correct me if I'm speaking incorrectly on that, Tom, but I think that will help budget pressures over the next couple of years on the municipal side. On the school side, 12 positions are funded from federal funds. There are 5 new positions funded in the general budget. And to Ms. Hamill's point, 12% is a large increase. But it does feel like that the revenues are on an upward trajectory for many reasons. And so we can balance out the increased spending as long as our revenue stays up. And that was looked at very carefully, at least for this coming year. Next year, every year is new and every year is different. But it looks like things like excise tax are definitely on an upward trajectory with more people in town. So we do have more revenue because of growth. And, honestly, a number of the things are growing in the budget, because of growth. We need a few more people to help at town hall. But we're still a pretty lean operation on the town side in terms of how we operate. So I do agree with Councilor Hamill that, you do have to be careful, because all at once, if you lose revenues, your budget can explode. But I'm very happy with what the town has done to this point. And I think we were prudent last year. We made some restorations this year, and next year, I still think we're going to be in a good position. So I also finally want to thank, Ms. Hamill and the folks in town that do pay a lot of attention, especially in the CTAS group. They have been watchdogs over the years to, definitely keep an eye and ask questions on the spending. We didn't quite hear. I think maybe COVID has really made the school budget so different for a little while that it's difficult to ask questions, as we didn't hear as much from some folks who normally, weigh in and point out things and ask great questions on that we usually dig into. But we had, we had people definitely going through the line items, and I think over the years that's helped us stay a fiscally conservative town. So, as much as folks sometimes don't care for, the political banter back and forth, I think it's a valuable aspect of Scarborough. And I personally wouldn't trade it. And I think it makes us the kind of efficient, high functional town that we are. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Anderson.
Yeah, I'm really excited to support this budget tonight. First I want to reflect a little bit on last year, because I think last year has a big impact on what we're seeing for this year. So a lot of tough decisions were made last year that everybody on this body had to make except for me, which I really appreciate. And I think some of the increases we're seeing are really because of the restoration of those decisions that were made, especially with personnel costs, which I think were a big part of this year's budget increase. So I think we need to recognize that the decisions that were made last year did have impact on this year, which is why, to Ms. Hamill's comments, I think you're seeing that net increase in operating expenses. So some of this is really due to the restoration, and I really appreciate the town and the schools for taking that guidance that the Finance Committee provided along with the council's support to really make sure that people tried to come in as lean as possible with a focus on restoration. And I feel like from the meetings we had, a lot of the town staff and the schools were really able to demonstrate to us that this truly is a restorative budget. Last year there was so much uncertainty, and I think things look very hopeful going forward. And I think this budget reflects that. There are some things in here that I do think are in addition, but are worthwhile investments, again, just given the direction things are going. So I think the investments that the school is making to really help with opening up the schools next year is critical. And I know a lot of people in the community are anxious to get their kids back in school, and I appreciate the due diligence the school has done to make sure that that happens with a pretty modest budget, in addition to the support they're getting from the federal and state. The increases in general assistance administration, I think, is really going to be helpful for those that are going to still be in need going forward next year. I appreciate the inclusion of additional training for diversity inclusion for the town staff. I'm excited to fund the master plan work out of community services to really consider the growth that's happening within the community and make sure that we really maximize the quality of life for all of the natural resources and things that people in Scarborough want to take advantage of. I'm personally excited to see the decision we've made to invest in the hub for next year. Again, I think as we open back up, that's going to be a critical way for this community to get back together. I think everybody's still a little cautious when it comes to gathering, even myself tonight. I'm not sure if I should put my mask on or not, but it's going to be a critical thing, I think, that will help bring our community together with some new exciting programming that we haven't been able to have. The adaptive traffic light signals that we're investing in, I think those are going to be great in terms of dealing with traffic. It's proven to do a lot down in Dunston, and I'm excited to see it on Route 1. Also, some small investments we made in the fire and police staff, really to kind of help, again, deal with the growth that we're seeing and make sure that public safety is given the resources they need to support the community. So again, I personally feel like this is pretty lean, it's modest. It really does primarily focus on restoration. I was nervous coming into this when we had that $3.4 million challenge, but I think things worked out really great. And I really appreciate town staff, school staff, Tom, Sandy, and everybody who worked hard and tirelessly to kind of make sure we could achieve that goal. So I'm really excited to support this budget tonight.
Thank you, sir. Any others? Councilor Johnson?
Yeah, I actually want to thank the residents of the town of Scarborough, not any particular group, to have the confidence and trust in this town council and the Board of Education to do the right thing. Last year was my first year on the budget, and I heard the term one town, one budget, and that confused me because it was a pretty contentious year, probably because of COVID and lots of things happening. This year felt a true collaboration between the two areas, between the school and the town council, and getting the job done. So I want to thank everybody that was involved with this.
Thank you. Any others? Councilor Clucci?
So I actually have to introduce a motion, but I'll give my comments now as well.
Okay.
Obviously, I support the budget. I think the Finance Committee did some fantastic work, and where we may have lacked engagement from the public, I think certainly John and Betsy made up for it. Those documents are public. They're on the town website. There were hundreds of questions that were asked of town staff, and they provided detailed responses and to their satisfaction. I'm also excited about some of the capital projects, extending Gorham Road out another mile or so. Doing some studies to do similar projects on other roads in town is, I think, exciting to me, exciting progress. And, one of my priorities coming into this year was to create some equity between the school and town budgets, because I think last year we missed the mark on that. And I really feel like this budget does. I think it's a fair budget for both. With that, I would like to move approval to amend the main motion and approve the Finance Committee's adjustments to the proposed FY22 budget as listed in the packet.
So there's,
I'll second
okay,
that.
same thing, just technicality, correct?
Yeah, I have one more too, just before you call.
Yeah, okay, so I'm just gonna call the vote on that to make it clear. So Tony, can we call the vote on that?
Councilor Clucci?
Yes.
Councilor Gleisteen?
Yes.
Councilor Anderson?
Yes.
Councilor Katarina?
Yes,
Councilor Johnson?
Yes.
Councilor Hamel?
Yes.
And Chairman Johnson?
Yes.
That's unanimous.
Okay, and Councilor Clucci, you have one more?
Why don't I introduce the second one? So
Yep.
this one it relates to whether we get additional general purpose aid from the state,
Oh, that's right.
which is anticipated, but we don't know exactly how much. So this will, to the extent that we do get more than is budgeted, half of it will go towards reducing the taxpayer impact, and the other half will go towards creating a capital reserve fund for the schools. So with that, I'd like to move approval to amend the main motion as amended by adding an additional, be it further ordered, that would authorize the use of additional state funding in the FY22 budget as detailed in the packet.
I second that.
Yeah, and I'm gonna call, because we've discussed this, so I'm gonna call a vote on that. Tony?
Counselor Clucci,
Yes.
Counselor Glystein,
Yes.
Counselor Anderson,
Yes.
Counselor Katarina,
Yes.
Counselor Johnson,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
and Chairman Johnson.
Yes.
That's unanimous. Thank you.
Okay, we're back to the main motion as amended. Any other comments? Council Hamel?
I had a question. Could either Tom or Counselor Clucci tell us a little bit about the minimum receiver change in funding and what that is doing for us in terms of additional money? Thank you.
Yeah, I can try. So this is my second attempt to try to
Yeah,
explain.
but listen, it can't be said enough, so keep.
I don't know if it'll go any better, but over the past several years, Scarborough's been what's called a minimum receiver, which means that we don't get the formulaic funding from the state. We get basically what we spent a couple of years ago on special education. With this change or proposed change from the governor's budget to fund the schools at 55%, we now are part of the formulaic funding formula. So that works by basically our mill rate is what, 14.8 or something. Well, for schools, the state's going to make sure that 7.2 of that is spent on schools, and then the state will cover anything over that. So now it's a whole new ballgame. So it's basically a growth tax, I guess is how I call it. So every new dollar of value that you put on the books, it's a good and a bad thing, I guess. You have to put more funding towards schools. But the benefit of that is if you put more students in, then you get compensated for that as well. So we're in a similar playing field to most of the rest of the state now. And it really makes our strategy with where we want to target our growth, whether it's in a TIF district or not, and then how we capture the value, which shelters that new growth from that formula. It makes those really important discussions. And I think something that for me is going to be a priority over the next couple of months for us to start coming to a strategy for how we can minimize, really maximize or leverage the opportunities that were now presented that we haven't been for quite some time. I'll get better the next time.
It was good.
Yeah.
I like it when you compare us to Falmouth, though. Can you compare us to Falmouth real quick?
Next time. Well, okay, yeah, I'll go there.
Yeah, is it?
So I mean, I studied the funding formula, right? For a while, it's one of the things that got me interested in politics. I've written about it. There's a huge incentive for rich communities to stay rich and not allow anything to happen, okay? Because the state's going to pay for your kids to go to school, and there's on the other side, somewhat of an incentive for the minimum receivers to be more growth oriented, because that's how you can compensate for that loss in state funding. So yes, Falmouth gets a significant portion of their school budget covered by the state, and we do not. And now we're going to be playing the same game, I guess.
We'll release some video, so it'll be fun. Well, any more discussion? Okay, Tony,
Final vote.
final vote?
Counselor Clucci,
Yes.
Counselor Glystein,
Yes.
Counselor Anderson,
Yes.
Counselor Katarina,
Yes.
Counselor Johnson,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
and Chairman Johnson.
Yes.
That's unanimous.
Next, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Tony?
Counselor Clucci,
Yes.
Counselor Glystein,
Yes.
Counselor Anderson,
Yes.
Counselor Katarina,
Yes.
Counselor Johnson,
Yes.
Counselor Hamel,
Yes.
and Chairman Johnson.
Yes.
That's unanimous. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Night.